Official statistics hide a harsh truth. For the poorest Americans, the cost of living is rising faster than for everyone else. This isn't a statistical anomaly, but a systemic failure, confirmed by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Every year, their personal inflation rate is 0.4 of a percentage point higher than that of the wealthiest. Why? Their consumer basket consists almost entirely of food, gasoline, and rent. Precisely the items that are increasing in price at an alarming rate. Over 10 years, this difference subtly erodes an amount equivalent to a month's grocery budget. This calls into question the very idea of average inflation and frames the main question of our investigation. Why does a system designed for growth systematically punish the poorest? This invisible tax on poverty manifests in two absurd traps. First, how have food deserts emerged in a country with the most developed retail trade? These are places where prices for basic necessities can be up to 36% higher. The paradox is that to buy affordable food, you often need to live in an expensive area. The second trap, how does a financial system designed to accumulate capital charge millions of the poorest households hundreds of millions of dollars annually just for access to their own money? We're talking about 5.9 million families. That's more than the entire population of Colorado. By the end of this film, you will have 6 keys to understanding this poverty tax. This isn't just a story about inequality, it's a guide to cracking hidden economic rules that make survival mathematically unprofitable. We will crack this code. In just 2 minutes, we'll start uncovering the first mechanism, how your place of residence determines the price of food on your plate. This paradox defies all logic. How can there be entire neighborhoods in megacities brimming with supermarkets where it takes over an hour to reach the nearest store with fresh produce? The U.S. Department of Agriculture calls these food deserts. At first glance, the reason seems simple. Low purchasing power in poor areas makes it unprofitable for large chains to open stores there. But mapping these areas reveals a systemic failure. These are not isolated spots, but vast territories that precisely align with maps of poverty and ethnic minority populations. The remaining small stores, lacking any competition, become monopolists. The result, prices for basic necessities there can be up to 36% higher. This works like a river blocked by a dam. Where the flow is free, prices are low. But in the desert, an artificial bottleneck is created, and price levels sharply rise. We will now show how this trip to the store turns into a multi-hour quest with financial risks. For a minimum wage family, this isn't a routine task, but a risky logistical operation. It all begins with detailed planning for a trip involving multiple buses, or a 20-year-old Ford Taurus where the fuel gauge is always on empty. Every turn of the ignition key is a silent prayer. There's a strictly limited time to choose groceries to make sure they catch the return transport. But what if the bus is late, or the old car breaks down on the way? The cost of such a breakdown isn't just the repair bill, it's a missed workday, lost wages, and a hungry evening for the children. The choice here isn't between brands of pasta, but between buying vegetables and paying for gas to get to work the next day. Have you ever had to choose between two equally essential basic expenses? Even when a solution arrives in such an area, the system turns it into a new trap. What happens when a new, large supermarket finally opens in a food desert? This phenomenon is called food gentrification. The logic seems positive. A new store makes the area more attractive to live in. Property values rise. But studies show the flip side. Following the supermarket's opening, rental rates skyrocket. The very families it was supposed to help can no longer afford to live there. They are displaced to even worse conditions. This is similar to a new, strong plant species appearing in an ecosystem. It makes the soil more fertile, but displaces the old species that have always lived there. We think development helps, but it can harm. We are moving from a tax on location to a tax on movement. So, we see that the very place you live imposes a direct tax on your food. Food deserts and food gentrification. These are not glitches, but two ugly working mechanisms of this system. But what if the main expenses aren't hidden on store shelves, but in the cost of the ability to get to work to earn money for that food? We are diving into the transportation trap, a second hidden mechanism that turns the commute to work into financial ruin. Right now, you will learn how the journey to a low-wage job can cost more than the job itself. How is it that the lower your salary, the more expensive each mile of your commute? to work becomes. This paradox is at the heart of the transportation trap. Geographical segregation forces millions of people to live far from well-paying jobs, and the lack of developed public transportation in these areas creates an unavoidable reliance on personal vehicles. This isn't a choice, but a compulsion. And we're not talking about new cars. These are 20-year-old sedans that turn every trip into a lottery. Maintenance costs for these vehicles consume up to 30% of income. In comparison, a top manager living downtown spends about 3% on transportation. This means that for every dollar earned per hour, a low-wage worker spends 18 minutes just paying for the commute. And this is precisely why even government investments in infrastructure can make life even more expensive for the poor. Multi-billion-dollar investments in new roads often only exacerbate the problem. Why? Because new expressways are designed to connect affluent suburbs with business centers. They are built for the speed and convenience of those who can afford it. Local routes connecting poor neighborhoods to warehouses, hospitals, and shopping centers are systematically ignored. Historically, this was not by chance. Robert Moses's projects in New York in the mid-20th century deliberately routed expressways directly through minority neighborhoods, physically cutting them in half and isolating them from the rest of the city. Infrastructure is not neutral. It is built for those with political influence, while everyone else pays the price for its absence. We will now conduct an experiment that shows how one small car breakdown can trigger a chain reaction of financial disaster. Imagine your daily food budget is $15. Now imagine you have a flat tire. The repair costs $30. What will your menu be for the next 2 days? For millions of people, this isn't a hypothetical situation, but a weekly reality. Unexpected transportation expenses are one of the main reasons people turn to payday loans with 400% annual interest. This is how a domino effect begins. A tire repair leads to missing work. That's a loss of a day's wages. To cover the deficit, you take out a microloan. Then come late fees for other payments. The cost of a flat tire can grow from $30 to $300 in a month. Such a person's financial stability is like a glass already filled to the brim with water. A car breakdown isn't just a drop, it's a sudden jolt. The glass falls and shatters. Have you ever faced a situation where a small, unexpected expense led to serious financial problems? So the commute to work isn't just a route, but another hidden tax you pay with time and money. The geographical and transportation traps work in tandem, amplifying each other. We've seen how a car breakdown pushes someone into a debt spiral. But what happens when you finally get your paycheck? It turns out you even have to pay to access your own money. Next, we'll uncover the third mechanism, an industry that legally earns billions from those who don't have a bank account. We're used to thinking of banks as places where money grows. Now you'll see how, for millions, they've become places where money vanishes. How is it possible that you have to pay to receive your own honestly earned money? For 5.9 million American families, this isn't a question, but a daily reality. These are the so-called unbanked households. They cannot or choose not to use bank services due to high fees, minimum balance requirements, or simply a lack of trust. This vacuum is filled by a gigantic legal industry built on profiting from poverty. Its main tool, payday loans at 300, sometimes even 400% annual interest. Borrowing $100 under these conditions is like borrowing at a rate 20 times higher than the most expensive credit card. This is not help, but legalized usury. That's why a small debt of $300 can turn into $1,000 within a year. How does this happen? The mechanics of these loans are built on creating a cycle of dependence. Imagine you urgently need $300 for car repairs. You take out a payday loan. The repayment period is 2 weeks. The fee is $50. It seems like a simple solution, but most borrowers cannot pay back the entire amount at once. Instead, they only pay the interest, and the principal debt is rolled over to the next period with new interest. This is called a rollover. The person falls into a trap where their entire paycheck goes towards paying interest, while the debt itself doesn't decrease. It's like running in place on a slippery slope. You expend all your energy just to avoid sliding down, but you don't move an inch forward. Why is it that where banks disappear, pawn shops and microloan offices spring up like mushrooms after rain? The answer is simple. This isn't a malfunction, but perfect market logic. In poor neighborhoods, it's almost impossible to find a branch of a major bank. It's unprofitable for them to serve clients with small accounts, so they deliberately close branches there, creating banking deserts. This vacuum is immediately filled by predators, check cashing services, and microloan offices. Studies show that for every closed bank branch in a low-income area, an average of 2 new microloan offices open. And the most alarming part, the map of banking deserts almost perfectly matches the map of food deserts. The system creates a multi-layered trap. You overpay for food, and then you overpay to cash a check to buy that food. We've seen fees for location, travel, and money. And now, let's look at the fee just for being human. The financial system for the poor operates by inverse laws. The less money you have, the more expensive each transaction becomes for you. We've uncovered 3 taxes: on geography, on transportation, and on money itself. They work together, exacerbating each other. But what if the main tax is simply a tax on being human and needing to eat, drink, and live under a roof? Next, we'll examine why manufacturers can raise prices on essential goods with impunity, and why official inflation is a myth for millions of Americans. In the next section, we'll return to the main paradox: why your personal grocery bill grows faster than official figures. And the answer will shock you. Why can the price of a new smartphone drop, while that of bread or baby food almost always only rises? This question reveals the law of the economy of inevitability. If you can forego a purchase like a new gadget, manufacturers compete on price. But if you cannot refuse, as with food, the manufacturer raises the price with almost no risk. This is called inelastic demand, and it explains why official inflation is like the average temperature of a hospital ward. It includes gadgets that are becoming cheaper, but the personal inflation of the poor is 80% composed of goods they cannot do without. This is precisely where that 0.4 of a percentage point gap per year is hidden. Over 10 years, it turns into an abyss. Demand elasticity works like gravity. You can jump to avoid it for a second, but you cannot stop obeying it. That's why even when the price on the shelf doesn't change, you still pay more. How is this possible? The answer lies in a phenomenon called shrinkflation. Manufacturers, not wanting to deter you with a price increase, subtly reduce the package size. A pack of pasta shrinks by 100 grams. There are 2 fewer cookies in the box. You pay the same, but you get less. This hits those who count every cent and buy the cheapest basic goods, where this trick is most often applied. They don't have the option to switch to another brand or buy a larger package. A 10% reduction in packaging is a hidden price increase of more than 11% per gram of product. This is a daily, imperceptible theft of purchasing power that isn't reflected in statistics. This same choice without a choice principle operates in markets where not comfort but life and health are at stake. A routine trip to the pharmacy turns into an agonizing dilemma: buy a child's essential medicine at the new price, or buy groceries for dinner. Pharmaceuticals are a market with absolutely inelastic demand. If a medication is essential for life, a person will pay any price. This isn't a choice, it's an ultimatum. Studies confirm people split pills in half or skip doses to make a package last longer. But such savings lead to complications and emergency hospitalizations, the bills for which far exceed the cost of the medications. The system punishes the very attempt to survive. A woman named Maria holds a prescription for a child's asthma inhaler. Price tag, $85. She looks at the 3 $20 bills in her wallet and silently puts the prescription back. Have you ever had to forego something important for your health due to the price? So the stronger your need for a product, the more you overpay for it. This is a fundamental law of the poverty tax, which creates the gap between your personal inflation and official figures. We pay this penalty in stores and pharmacies. But there's another one that arrives by mail every month and takes a huge portion of the budget, leaving no choice. Next, we'll examine the 5th mechanism, energy poverty. You'll learn why heat and light in energy-inefficient housing cost the poor 3 times as much, turning a home from a sanctuary into another financial trap. Now you'll see how a heater running at full blast in an old apartment can bankrupt you faster than a bank loan. How is it that a family trying to save every watt ends up paying more per kilowatt hour than the owner of a mansion with a pool? This paradox is the result of a regressive tariff. A huge portion of the bill is a fixed charge for connection and network maintenance. It doesn't depend on consumption. This works like pizza delivery. If you order one small pizza, The delivery fee makes up a giant portion of the bill, but for a large order, the same fee is diluted within the total amount. A second factor is added to this: energy-inefficient housing. Low-income families live in old homes with drafty windows and poor insulation. A significant portion of energy goes not to heating the home, but to heating the street. A quarter of such households spend over 15% of their income on energy, 3 times the average. They pay huge sums not for warmth, but for the right not to freeze in a leaky house. Why not simply insulate the house or buy a new energy-efficient refrigerator that would pay for itself in a few years? This is the investment trap of poverty. To save money in the future, you need to spend it now. But families living paycheck to paycheck don't have disposable funds. They are forced to choose short-term survival. But it's not just about the lack of initial capital. The average payback period for home insulation for a middle-income family is 7 to 10 years. For a poor family, due to predatory loan interest rates, if loans are even available, this period stretches to 20 to 30 years. A rational investment becomes meaningless. An old refrigerator manufactured before 2001 can consume up to 1,400 kilowatt hours per year. That's enough to power a modern refrigerator and 2 laptops. The hum of an old compressor, that's the sound of a constant money leak. This isn't a choice, but a sentence. It's winter outside. The house is cold. Parents face a choice: set the thermostat to a comfortable temperature and receive an unaffordable bill, or force the family to live in the cold, risking their children's health. This is a daily reality. Several layers of clothing, taped up windows, the whole family in one room. But constant cold leads to frequent colds in children. These are missed days at school and work. Saving on heating results in much higher expenses for medicine and lost income. Sarah, a mother, checks her homemade seals made from old towels in the window frames every night. She feels the icy air still seeping through them. The sound of a child's cough in a cold bedroom turns a home from a sanctuary into a source of threat. The basic right to warmth and light becomes the 5th hidden tax. We've dissected the 5 horsemen of the economic apocalypse for the poor: hunger, food deserts, isolation, the transportation trap, debt, predatory lending, scarcity, the demand penalty, and cold energy poverty. We've examined systems built over decades. But recently, a 6th, the smartest and most invisible, has joined these horsemen. Its weapon: code. It learns in milliseconds and strikes directly into your pocket through your smartphone screen. Later in the film, code that knows you are poor and issues you a personalized price in real time. How can the price of the same item in the same online store differ for you and your more affluent colleague at the exact same moment? The era of a single price tag is over. The mechanism that decides who pays more. This is the 6th element of our investigation: algorithmic bias. At first glance, it all seems logical. Dynamic pricing changes costs based on demand, like airline tickets during holidays or taxis in the rain. But the data shatters this illusion. A modern algorithm analyzes not demand, but your personal vulnerability. An older phone model, geolocation in a poor neighborhood, purchase history with discounts, a nearly dead battery. This is a digital imprint of your financial weakness. Studies have shown that users with a battery level below 15%, on average, see taxi service prices that are 7 to 12% higher. The algorithm doesn't price the product, it prices you. And this technology is already moving from online into the system that determines the cost of your safety on the road. Why can your zip code influence the cost of car insurance more than your accident-free driving record? Insurance companies call this neighborhood-based pricing. Their algorithms analyze theft and accident statistics across an entire neighborhood, assigning it an overall risk level. This seems like impartial mathematics, but in reality, it's a modern, digital form of redlining, a discriminatory practice of the past. 2 drivers with identical driving histories can pay up to 45% more for car insurance if they are separated by just 1 street, the boundary between an affluent and a risky zip code. The algorithm doesn't see you, it only sees your neighborhood's code, punishing you for your neighbor's problems. Geography, finance, transportation, all previous factors of the poverty tax are now digitized, fed into a neural network, and used for automated discrimination. This is a red line drawn not on a paper map, but in the code of an invisible algorithm. This system seems perfect, but its very totality exposes its main vulnerability. Late evening. You're trying to get home from a disadvantaged neighborhood. Public transport has stopped running. You open a ride-sharing app, and the price is 3 times higher than usual. Why? The standard explanation, a surge multiplier due to high demand. But the reality is more cynical. The algorithm sees not just demand, but a perfect storm of your vulnerability. First, late hour and no buses mean you have no alternatives. Second, geolocation in an unsafe area means a high desire to leave. Third, a low phone battery means you don't have time to look for other options. The algorithm doesn't work like a salesperson, it works like a hydraulic press. It doesn't offer a price, but slowly increases pressure until its sensors detect your point of maximum resistance. A phone screen that's about to die becomes a symbol of hopelessness. Code written for exploitation proves it can be rewritten for protection. Algorithms didn't invent the poverty tax, they perfected it. Digital intelligence has combined geography, finance, transport, demand, and energy into a single, self-learning mechanism. This system is invisible, personalized, operates in real time, and can always claim the objectivity of mathematics. It seems invincible, but its strength lies in its hiddenness. Understanding how it works is the first step toward dismantling it. In the finale, we will piece together all 6 parts of this diabolical puzzle and ask, how do we hack this matrix that holds millions hostage? We have seen how the system of suppression works. In the finale, we will discuss where the system of resistance begins. Until now, we've been taking this machine apart piece by piece. Now we see it assembled. And the main horror isn't in the individual components, but in their synergy. Living in a food desert forces a family to buy an old car. Its maintenance pushes them into the hands of predatory lenders. Debts eat away at the budget, forcing them to buy only the cheapest goods with inelastic demand and to save on heating in a leaky home. And all this information, geolocation, credit history, phone model, purchases, is analyzed to assign a personalized, inflated price for everything else. This isn't just a list of problems. It's a perfectly closed loop. This system works like a Chinese finger trap. Trying to pull one finger out only tightens the loop on another, making escape impossible. We return to the main question posed at the very beginning. Why does a system designed for growth systematically punish the poorest? After everything we've seen, the answer is obvious. The system isn't broken. It's designed this way. It's not a bug, it's a feature. This isn't a tragic accident, but the logical outcome of thousands of rational, profit-driven, yet, in their totality, inhumane business decisions. Selling at a higher price where there's no competition, that's rational. Giving high-interest loans to risky clients, that's rational. Using data to maximize price, that's rational. The problem is that all these rational actions combine to form a system irrational in its cruelty. Poverty, it's not just a condition. It's the most profitable market on the planet. Remember the family choosing between gas and vegetables. After uncovering all 6 mechanisms, we can no longer view them as victims or failures. Their daily struggle is not a consequence of laziness or poor decisions. It's a heroic resistance against a system mathematically designed to put them at a disadvantage. Saving on heating, that's not stinginess, but a tactical move in a war against utility rates. Their trip to a distant supermarket, that's not a waste of time, but a raid behind enemy lines for resources, a planned 3-hour operation to save $18. Every cent saved, that's a battle won. Their resilience, that's the primary human argument against the inhumanity of this machine. This film doesn't offer simple answers, but it should initiate a search process. Therefore, in the finale, we leave you with one question that summarizes the entire investigation. What is the true root of this problem? There are 2 options. First, the system. This choice means you believe the poverty tax is the result of deliberate corporate and political strategies that can and should be changed. Second option, inertia. This choice means you view this as an unavoidable side effect of a complex economy that cannot be fixed. There is no right answer. But your choice will determine how you see the world after this film. Write one word in the comments, system or inertia, and see what others think.